return. I'm Charlie Gasparino from Fox Business, the New York Post, with my partner in crime from S3 Partners, the granddaddy of data, Bob Sloan. And today we want to get right into it because we have a special guest, a guy that I followed his career. He just wrote a great book. This book, if you want to know, sit down and read the history of crypto, particularly through one man's eyes, and how you can get it from the beginning to where it is now, all the regulatory stuff in between. Read CZ's book. CZ, as you know, is the moniker for. Can you say your real name? Because I'll screw it up.
Yeah, Changpeng Zhao. Nobody can pronounce it correctly, so CZ is good.
You know from CZ, the founder of Binance. He's still the largest shareholder, and one of the sort of pioneers of crypto. And we got him here today, and we're going to get right into it. I read. I'm like almost through your book, as we were talking a little bit about this yesterday, Freedom of Money. And I think you should read the book. It is really written in a very useful way. And so you get the high points of his life. It's both a memoir and a memoir about crypto, memoir of his life, guy that was, grew up in rural China, immigrant to Canada, flipping burgers, working his way through Carnegie Mellon. And then, you got it. You began in traditional finance. How do you make that? Most of the people I know in crypto are, they kind of got into crypto directly, but you came in through trad finance. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I was in fintech before, right? I worked at Bloomberg, and then I was trying to do a broker system for what we call the ultra low latency trading system. Basically, like a system for brokers to do order execution. So when I came across Bitcoin, so I have the combination of tech, finance, and also international kind of living experience. I live in different parts of the world, so it was very easy for me to understand Bitcoin. I was like, this is the thing. That happened to me like 13 years ago. So for me, it wasn't about back then or even today. It wasn't about traditional finance versus crypto. It's just a new technology for finance. Blockchain is just the internet for finance. So the technology will eventually, sooner or later, be fully integrated into all aspects of finance. So for me, it was that kind of view. It wasn't, okay, I'm going to pivot into something new. It is new, it is niche, but it is a new technology that will be adopted by everyone. So that's kind of how I view it. So I don't view myself as against traditional finance or trying to disrupt anything, etc. This is just a new technology that we're going to adopt. So better getting early. So...
It's funny because that's kind of where you hear some of these Wall Street guys going with it right now. The Jamie Dimons, Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, endorsed your book. It was a very nice endorsement. Did you turn Larry Fink around from crypto skeptic to crypto believer? Because he believes in tokenization of everything now. He believes that blockchain is going to really rule the roost in traditional in all finance.
Yeah, no, I cannot claim credit for that one. He somehow turned himself. I don't know who helped him, or else he probably just learned more and more about it. By the time I met him and when I spoke to him, he was already a crypto diehard. so I met him after he turned. Yeah, but people. When I first read Bitcoin, I was a little bit skeptical as well. I can understand people being skeptical at the beginning, especially if you're the CEO of a very, very of the largest asset manager on the planet. So your existing position may prevent you from adopting the new view. But to Larry's credit, he was able to course correct, and he openly admits it. Like, that takes a lot of confidence.
Yeah, and now he believes we're going to tokenize everything. I mean, what does it mean when you say we're going to tokenize stocks? That means if you're because it's easy to buy a stock just on my Robinhood, on my iPhone. But if you tokenize it, does it mean like if you're in another country, it's easier to buy? Is that the concept? Like it sort of opens up markets across the world? Because obviously it's not easy to transact in Ecuadorian, whatever they have, pesos. I don't know, but you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. No, I think what you mentioned is exactly correct. It's easy for you to trade U.S. stocks, but if you want to buy some Chinese stock, it might be pretty difficult, and vice versa, right? A guy in India, a guy in Brazil wants to buy some, I don't know, Tesla. it might be pretty difficult for them to open a brokerage account. The amount of effort involved, they may only have, I don't know, 50 or $100 to invest, but it's still important to them, right? So for them to open a brokerage account, go through KYC, like that effort's going to cost them more than $50, right? Oh,
Yeah.
it's going to cost somebody.
So if you tokenize it, it becomes kind of seamless, right?
It's not seamless. Yeah. Also, it's trades 24/7. You can also trade it in fractions. So you can trade a very tiny amount. You can buy, I don't know, 5 cents of something. So you can have your agent trade all day long at a very low cost venue. So all of those things become possible when you tokenize it. So with the current stock market, yeah.
I was going to say, I mean, are we close to that, or do you need the regulatory framework here in the U.S. to change before we go there?
I think we're kind of already there, right? I think, this tokenized stocks trading on crypto exchanges already, and the volumes are pretty decent. There's tokenized gold. I think gold trading volume was like now it's like 10% of futures trading volume at Binance, right? And it's only been listed for 2 months. And oil is now going to be traded on the crypto exchanges too. So I think it's already happening. I think it's just at the beginning of happening, but it's already happening. Yeah.
Is one of the things that, let's say, you're global head of a massive asset manager, one of the things they're seeing with tokenization is, wow, there's a lot more liquidity out there than we thought. And two, for capital markets, particularly listing of stocks, to be able to access that 24/7 liquidity is a real thing, right? Because it gives you listing power, it centralizes your exchange power, and you could see actually U.S. exchanges become absolutely dominant because it seems like the U.S. is now on its front foot embracing blockchain, et cetera, technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah. And U.S. has the best liquidity globally, but U.S. markets are quite limited to the U.S., right? So which company wouldn't want your stock to be traded by everyone in the world, right? So if it's the American government, why wouldn't you want everyone to buy your government bond, right? Why would you limit that only to the American citizens? Every country that I know wants every other country to buy their own bonds. This is like, basically getting investment, right? And if you look at the stable coins, all the crypto stable coins today are US dollar based, and they all buy US treasuries on the back end. So we basically have, I don't know, $150 billion of US T bills that are purchased by crypto guys, right? So that's good for the country. So every other country want to copy this.
No, right. No, but that's a real thing, right? It's a developing pocket of liquidity across many different asset classes and product types.
What is at there are so many institutional investors in TradFi that are still just not buying it. What is the misconception here? That it's the Wild West still, that it's too esoteric. I'm just trying to figure out why there's this pushback. You still get the push. Is it the fact that we saw a sort of explosion in the speculation on Bitcoin, but maybe not the same sort of a explosion in the technology, or is the technology finally catching up to the speculation in the coin itself?
Yeah, so I think there's most institutions move slowly. For until a year and a half ago, most governments were sort of anti-crypto, right? So crypto was suppressed, and most institutions are scared of touching it. And it's only been a year and a half since U.S. turned pro-crypto, right? Well,
Right.
we have President Trump, and we're still seeing that even with President Trump supporting it, we're still seeing U.S. passing new laws to support it. The laws are still being discussed, so it's still a bit uncertain for certain institutions. And the large institutions are very careful, right? They manage billions or trillions of people's money. They move very slowly. Their investment community takes months. So it takes years for them to rebalance their portfolios, to move their positions, etc. I think BlackRock moved pretty fast, but it's still a very small percentage of their entire portfolio, right? They manage 14 trillion. Right now, the IBIT is less than $1 trillion, right? So it's growing pretty fast, but it's still a small new thing in the traditional finance, only in the last year or so. So I think over the next period of time, assuming the policies continue to be stable, then we'll see much more of that flowing in. So that also presents the opportunity. Basically, 95% of money in the US are in institutions, and they haven't come in yet. By the time they come in, there's so much room for growth.
Yeah, and we still have legislation. They're still mucking around with different market structure legislation. So obviously, we're not going to get that until we get that out of the way. But they're moving pretty fast with that. I mean, my old producer, who now does crypto in America, Ellie Terrett's been covering this new legislation that's been going on, and it's fits and starts.
But Wall Street understands that the movement of money, right? You can execute a stock instantaneously, but the money doesn't necessarily move instantaneously. Right? So they understand that the capital requirements and balance sheet, et cetera, using blockchain, using tokens, et cetera, they understand that is a capital efficient, capital releasing mechanism for them. And that's a very powerful motivation.
Yeah.
Right? So I'd love to hear from you, CZ, if you had to map out a taxonomy of use cases, 3 years, 5 years from now, 1, 2, 3, where do you think things wind up?
Very hard to predict that one. 3 years is just kind of on the borderline of hard to predict.
5 is almost impossible, but you're the smartest guy in the room, so that's my yes.
No, I'm definitely not the smartest guy. I'm definitely the dumbest guy in the room. So, but I'll take a shot in the dark. I think stable coins are gonna grow pretty significantly. Tokenization, tokenizing of everything. When we say RWAs, real world assets, I think that includes stable coin by most people's definitions today, right? So I think RWAs tokenization will get big. I believe payments will get big. You will get there. You'll be slow, but you will eventually get there. And then the other thing, what was on lending, debt, borrowing. I think that's a market that people have not tapped into with crypto. And we're starting to see it rise. So right now, crypto is viewed as a speculative asset. You buy and hold and try to make money. But I think lending, borrowing, debt, the debt market is the biggest market in the world. Nobody talks about, but I think it's going to get there.
Yeah, interesting.
Freedom of money. What's the core idea you want that people walk away from your book? I mean,
Sure. So
I loved it because it just kind of like it was a primer on this business that everybody talks about. No one really understands the details, and you were there kind of every step of the way, including through the regulatory morass. What do you think I should be really? What should people walk away thinking about crypto after reading this?
So I think many people view crypto as just an investment asset. Like you buy Bitcoin hoping the price will go up. That's not what crypto is. That's not what blockchain is. And if you think about, it's a technology that increases our freedom. Whenever we can increase the freedom without sacrificing anything else, our civilization advances. Right from a few hundred years ago when we free people physically from slavery, people's lives improve. And maybe like two something hundred years ago in the US, there's freedom of speech, right? And then with internet, there's freedom of information. With blockchain, we're talking about freedom of money. You can control your money. Your money is no longer controlled by somebody else. And then with AI, now there's freedom of intelligence, right? So each time this technology is basically on those levels where it increases the fundamental freedom of you. Right, even like before, right? A few hundred years ago, the states controlled the religion, right? So we somehow separated religion from state. But right today, the countries control money, which they don't have to be very frank, right? So the countries should be a service provider. They should be the infrastructure provider. They should provide roads, hospitals, fire departments, police, etc. But the money you own should be yours. So I think this technology increases that freedom. It's not just a speculative asset. Blockchain increases the financial access for people who don't have access to financial tools today in many parts of the world. US, you don't feel this very much because you have pretty good financial infrastructure. But if you look at Africa, Southeast Asia, many parts of the world, many people don't have financial access. They cannot borrow money. They don't have a credit system. They don't even 90 something% of people in Africa doesn't even have banks. right? Banking penetration is less than 11%. So all of this are going to be fixed, or at least significantly improved with the blockchain technology. So that's the point I want to try to get across for people to understand in the book. So in the book, I don't talk about price. I don't talk about how you make money. It's just this technology, how we build a platform. Hoping people will see that aspect of it.
CZ, I read very briefly, but I'm going to obviously read more of it. You sold your apartment to go all in.
Yeah.
Walk us through your thinking at the time. And I think you mentioned it in as we introduced you in the show, but at that moment in time, what were you feeling? Total confidence, total fear? And what got you from fear to confidence if you were feeling that?
Sure. So when I was buying, I was like, I'm late. I gotta get in earlier. Right. So it took me about 6 months in 2013 to understand the technology of the community, and I was convinced. I was like, this is the biggest thing in my adult life, right? When the internet happened, I was just out of college. I was too young to do anything significant with it. When like in 2013, I was like 36. I feel like now is my prime time. If I don't do anything now, the next technology will be 15 years later. And we know now that's AI, but I'm a bit too old to sort of do another startup right now. So I figured that was the prime time to go all in on the largest technology evolution. So when I was buying, I was anxious. But as soon as I bought, the price dropped. And then everyone's like, then I was like, am I wrong? Is everyone else wrong? For me, the risk tolerance, the risk factor is tolerable. I know that even if Bitcoin went to zero, basically I will lose the house, or I lose the money that I got from the house. My family, my lifestyle would not be impacted. I can still get a job in Wall Street as a tech guy, so it was still paid pretty well. My lifestyle was never very luxurious. It was very comfortable, but it's not grand. So the risk factor for me was totally manageable. So that kind of went through in my head.
You still
Sorry?
ride your bike to work? You still ride your bike to work?
Not anymore. I'm like right now I mostly work from home, so I actually don't use the bicycle much at all. So I use a minivan now. But when I was in Tokyo, I was riding a bicycle.
I know. I saw the. I read the book. I saw that.
Yeah, you saw the picture.
Yeah, that was great. We should point out that and I know you have some questions on MicroStrategy. I just want to talk a little bit about the book because the book you're going to donate the proceeds to charity, obviously, and it's doing pretty well on Amazon. Last I looked, he wrote this from jail in 15-minute spurts, right?
Yeah.
Like he had to get on the computer. And by the way, writing from jail is no fun because you can't really not massage the copy really. You just got to kind of brain dump it. That was like a fascinating part of the book. But the other great part of the book was just all the people that you came in contact with, including your Sam Bankman-Fried story, which I got to ask again. I know everybody talks about this, but he came to you looking for bailout money. Can you explain that situation a little bit? I know you might be sick of it, but it's really good. It's good. It's good.
Yeah. Well, I gotta be a little bit. I'm a little bit restricted on what I could and could not say there because there's an ongoing lawsuit with they're trying to claw back some money, etc.
Yeah, no,
But fundamentally, yeah, there's a lot of press about how my tweet may have impacted them. But it was CoinDesk that had an article saying like they may be insolvent, and then
I remember it. I remember well.
yeah, that was on November 3rd, right? And
No, but without getting into like what he did or what he didn't do, his demeanor was bizarre, wasn't it, when he came to you?
He was. Yeah. So he came to me. He was pretty dodgy, and he went in circles for like 10 minutes, and then he wanted billions of dollars. Right? It was like first he needed $2 billion, and then he needed $6 billion, and then he needed $4 billion. Yeah. So as we talked about yesterday, like when you ask for people for billions of dollars, you gotta have a very precise number. It's gotta be like I need 2.7835 billion. Right? It has to be calculated. It has to be precise. But the fact that he was asking those numbers told me that he doesn't know what's going on. And then we entered into an LOI. We waited for 24 hours in a data room. During that time, his chief legal officer quit. I think his name is Ken Tsai or something. And then there was a bunch of news in the public that crazy stuff's going on. So we just couldn't continue on that deal. Yeah.
Did you guys meet in person?
Yes, we met a couple of times in person, maybe like 3-5 times in person. We first met in January 2019 at a
But when he
at a at a Binance.
when he was asking for the money, was he in person or was it on Zoom?
It was on Zoom. It's like it was not in person. I was in Dubai at the time, and it was just a call. Yeah.
And he was dressed as Sam Bankman-Fried, generally dressed. He wasn't in a suit asking for billions of dollars, I'm assuming.
No. We didn't even turn video on, but in crypto we don't care, right? It's a phone call. I think he was in Bahamas at the time. I was in Dubai. Yeah.
You want to ask about MicroStrategy, Chris?
Sure.
That's a funny story. Billions, it's like monopoly money.
Well, he got to a place where maybe it was monopoly money to him,
It
right? It
was.
just, he was spinning things up so much, he got untethered with value, right? And just it's like, I didn't, he didn't even know what he needed. So, talk to us a little bit about digital asset treasuries, DATs,
Yeah.
and do you think there's an overhang to the market, to the price of Bitcoin? Is it a serious factor in I'll call it near-term price action?
Well, I think the DATs do hold a lot of Bitcoin, right? I think MicroStrategy is on track to hold 1 million Bitcoins. So
Yeah.
that's pretty significant. Well, that's very significant. Um, and I did not understand the DAT play. I mean, Michael Saylor obviously did. I think he's one of those geniuses that understood both understood IPOs, public companies, how to raise money, different debt, senior notes. He understood that structure really well, and he also understood Bitcoin really well. So I understand Bitcoin somewhat. I know nothing about the other side of what he understood, of what he knows. So he somehow did figure this out, which I think is a fantastic structure that you can use Bitcoin, you can accumulate Bitcoin, you can raise money to buy Bitcoin, and then you can use that to do many other things. So that's his expertise. I think he has made great contributions, and the model does work. The model, though, the model comes into under pressure when there's a bear market. But if you survive one bear market, like any Bitcoin investor, right? You buy Bitcoin during a bull market, and then there will be a bear market. After you go through the first bear market, the second bear market, you'll be fine. The second bear market, the bottom price will be higher than your entry on the last bull market, right? So I think MicroStrategy, yeah,
Yeah, it just
yeah.
seems like a lot of different other type of asset plays where the source of financing, if that stays open, then the strategy works. If it doesn't, then they have to sell inventory. It's just kind of that simple.
Well, I think there's a bit more than that. I think Bitcoin, given this low adoption right now, as long as more people, as long as the growth of the industry continues, the Bitcoin price will continue to rise. So even if there's no more money coming in, the initial investors will not be hurt. So the risk is if Bitcoin goes to zero, then that strategy doesn't work. I think.
that's right.
But
That's right.
so far, once you last through one cycle, that strategy seems to be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And then lastly, a lot of talk about quantum and wallet risk. What are your thoughts on that?
I think quantum may actually have some. Well, they may have the ability to crack some of the existing encryption mechanisms used by wallets, but it's a simple upgrade. There are quantum-proof encryption algorithms already, right? So it technically is a simple upgrade to those newer encryption mechanisms, and everyone just moves on. In practice, there are some difficulties in implementing new protocols in the decentralized space. That's going to be community voting, etc. I actually believe that most of the smaller blockchains will probably upgrade first, and that kind of provides a test, and then Bitcoin will upgrade. And I don't think it's going to be an issue. I also think people tend to be a bit more optimistic with how fast they can achieve things in the short term. So Google published this great paper. I'm sure they made really good advances. And they're very nice. If they did make significant advances, they're very nice to sort of protect the public. But I'm also suspecting that there might be an element of marketing PR. Like if I was working on quantum, I would want to tell the world, "Hey, in 2 years, we're gonna crack all the encryption mechanism." Right? People are generally optimistic about what they can achieve by the timelines. As developers, I manage tech people, engineers, right? When they promise you a delivery date, it's almost always late. So I think overall, I think it is a existing technology that we need to address and we need to upgrade to. But then, I don't think it's going to pose a risk for crypto at all. In fact, I think it will help crypto because with quantum, there may be encryption mechanism that it takes quantum computers billions and billions of years to crack, and that would be more secure.
More secure. Right.
Yeah. We got a few minutes left, and I want to be mindful of your time. But I got to ask you this: who is Satoshi Nakamoto? Do we know who this guy is?
I do not. He has not made contact with me. I don't know where to find him. So, to be honest, I think
right? Is it a him or a he or she? We don't know.
It could be he or she or they or it. We don't know, right? You can offer from the future. That send us a digital white paper, and have some digital emails with us. The fact that the FBI, CIA, or the government's couldn't find them, that's crazy, right? You're gonna leave some digital trail somewhere. I think I'm just shocked that no one has found him. But it's good that no one finds him. That makes Bitcoin.
But I read some long piece in the Times recently where they thought they found the guy, but he denied it.
No. Yeah, that was completely the wrong guy. That was completely the wrong guy. But yeah. But yeah, it's good that we don't know him. That makes Bitcoin more decentralized, right? Yeah.
You think it's better that we don't know him? That's interesting.
I think it's better. I at this point, it's definitely better. Also, it's better for him. It's better for crypto. Imagine if he finds him.
Explain why it's better for him to be anonymous.
Because it's anonymity, right? That's the whole point.
Well, I mean, if you going through what I went through, different governments in the world, I think U.S. is now pro crypto, so he'll be safe. But if there is if during the Biden administration, if he was around, if we knew who he was, I would be out of trouble. He would be in trouble, right?
Yeah.
So people were not targeting me; people were targeting him. So I think going through what I went through, it's much better for him to stay anonymous right now. So I think maybe until 10, 20 years later, he can reveal who he or she or they are. But also for the industry, right? Without knowing him, the industry is more decentralized. There's a lot more debates. There's a lot more chaos, but it's more decentralized. If we know who he is, then everyone's going to ask him, how are you going to fix quantum? What is your suggestion? What should we do next? Then he becomes much more centralized. So I think he's very, very smart to sort of disappear. Yeah. So only dumb people like me.
Right. Well, decentralization is the whole reason we have this. So no single entity can control it. No government, no individual, which is why it's a good thing. You meant what happened to you. So I guess we got to go there a little bit. You spent 4 months in jail. You pled guilty to one single count of the violation of the Bank Secrecy Act. So, the speculation, it was money laundered. It's all overblown. I mean, this is like when the government calls you, listen, fighting the government, trust me, I know a lot of people, sometimes it's just easier to say, okay, I'll do my 4 months, which is what happened. And let me ask you this. Was jail in any way, did it help you in any way in moving your thoughts about crypto or your life forward? I mean, was there a positive aspect of it? Because I mean, the food sucks, obviously, you're locked up, but was there something that you came to terms with stuff in a more meaningful way?
I think so, actually. At the time, going through prison is really not fun. I think people underestimate the amount of stress, the amount of unpleasantness, and the amount of both physical and mental stress that you have to deal with going through. Even when it's 4 months, just going through that process is really bad. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But at the same time, coming out of that, I think it did change me in a number of ways. It made me realize what's important in my life. So when everything's taken away from you, what do you miss the most? Yeah, I miss the food a little bit, but I can deal with the shitty food. The part I really missed was the people in my life, right? So my family, my friends, etc. And then it also made me realize health is really important, right? So money, you can pay more or less. Too little money, you kind of you're not comfortable. But once you get to a certain point, it doesn't change very much. I wear the same clothes. I live in the same type of apartment compared to most 99% of the people. So it also made me. It also freed me away from Binance. I cried when I was forced to step down as CEO when I was penning that blog. But then afterwards, I was like, oh, great. Now I have a lot more free time. I can do other things now. That's a really good chapter. But life for me is more than that now. So there's definitely some positives, and also it gives me a slightly more comprehensive view on the range of different things that could happen in life. So you can you can celebrate the highs, you can tolerate the lows. So you give me a much more, I would say, a well-rounded view. So it made me a humbler person. I think overall, there are good parts out of it. Also, the other part is it allowed me to continue my workouts. So I work out. I'm in just a better physical shape. I can do more push-ups. So there's some positives. Yeah. So
So that gets me to the question: does CZ go back to Binance? You're still the largest shareholder. Do you go back to Binance? Do you just do your own thing? I mean, what happens?
I think right now, I have no plan to go back to running Binance. I think Binance is ran pretty well by the existing team. They do a really good job. They work really, really hard. I see some of them on phone calls. Like again, they're still doing the 18-hour a day on phone calls. They're doing phone calls at lunch and dinner. I think it's good for to leave that opportunity to others as well. So I don't have plans to going back to running Binance, but as you said, I'm a large shareholder. They sometimes ask me for advice on acquisitions, mergers that deal with shareholder rights, etc. So and I do quite a bit of. I still spend some time with the investments on the Easy Lab side, and I coach other founders in the ecosystem. I quite enjoy that right now. So I'll do that for a couple more years at least and see what happens.
Good for you. You deserve it.
That was fantastic.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say the book is Freedom of Money. I recommend everybody read it just for insight into who CZ is, a decent man, and got caught up in a maelstrom of a shitstorm of nasty stuff and came out of it on the other end okay. And through that shitstorm, there's a narrative here about this emerging industry called crypto and blockchain. CZ, thank you for joining us today.
Charlie, Bob, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure. Thank you.
If you want to stick around and get bored by us, feel free. Well, you could listen.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow. Great guy, huh?
That was a great interview.
You know what I like about CZ is that for as much shit as he's gone through, and by the way, jail.
I was about to say the same thing.
He's kind of like a down-to-earth dude, and he's kind of, and by the way, he doesn't duck any questions.
Not angry.
No, not angry at all.
Right. And that's what struck me in speaking with him is how there was no animus.
And look, and let's unpack what
I'd be pissed.
you should just unpack a little bit what went down. They were saying that there was they failed to control. They didn't have the right controls on it, so people were using it for
There were a lot of allegations made around
money laundering.
And
about this.
bad people using the
Okay,
exchange and
but
so on and so forth.
bad people use the banking system. I mean, this is what I could never get my hands around. This is an emerging technology. Of course, there's going to be, stuff is going to happen. Hey, listen, it's child porn on the internet. Do you think does that mean Google needs to be held accountable for every bit of child porn out there? I mean, I'm just telling you that all these emerging technologies are going to go through a birth, a sort of maturation process. And unless the people are going out there and looking for money launderers to use the system, that's different than it just happening.
Look,
And that's what I could never get. And this guy kind of got caught in that sort of scrutiny, which was over the top and insane. Jeffrey Epstein used JP Morgan. Right. I mean, does that mean, and God knows for what, they didn't know everything he was spending money on? Does that mean they should be shut down or whatever? Put Jamie Dimon in jail? I mean, that's insane.
Oh, it's funny. You're forcing a debate on degrees of bad behavior, right? If you're moving money on behalf of people that exploit, terrorize, murder, and they're known entities.
But if they're not known.
Well, so what I really wanted to ask him was, what does regulation look like to him going forward? Because once you make it so that Wall Street gets a benefit, easier capital, shorter transaction periods, right? Freeze up, haircuts, freeze up margin.
Cultures of compliance start to bear down.
bear down on it, but also it means that there's incentive to promote it
Well,
and use it.
I-
And so it'd be interesting to hear from him and say, okay, if you were sitting in a bank and you had the other hat on,
Well, he did.
how would you do that?
He did address it. He says it goes slow until you really do have adoption.
But that's different. That's a flywheel, right? That's an adoption curve. I'm asking, what would be the things that he would say, yeah, okay, to get to scale, to your point, how do when you want to flywheel something?
You need a regulatory framework.
And then, that's being worked out. Okay, what are the top 3 things that need to happen so you get adoption?
Well, you do need a market structure, and that's what they're working on, right? I mean, that, and he got
I got into it a little bit. Yeah.
Anyway, I liked your question about quantum. Kind of went over my head because you guys are geeks and I'm not.
Well, it's security, right? So there's a cryptographic technology that makes your crypto wallet supposedly uncrackable, and
Right.
quantum is a technology that can actually uncrack that. But according to CZ, and there's no need to doubt him, there's he made it sound as easy as upgrading, your iOS system on your phone, that you can basically make sure that your wallet is safe. I think, sure, for businesses and institutions, that's probably right. But for the individual, it poses some risk, and, they just have to be aware, right? So part of the thing is education, right? You have to educate people what the risks are and actually make them aware.
You are. And
Which is what we just did.
yes. And what was the point of that wrong interview? The other thing that was interesting was his comments about who is Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yeah.
Now, the Times did this blowout, pinning on some guy, and I forget the guy's name, but I have to admit I read a lot of it. And, it was 10,000 words. It was long. But he doesn't believe it said they got the right.
Well, there were all these rumors. It was Jack Dorsey, then it was somebody else, and somebody else. And so it was, but that was true. A lot of people thought it was him.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's not CZ though.
I don't think you would get that out of him.
No,
And I think his point was probably the right one. Is you Satoshi Nakamoto is the kingpin, right? You become the focus of everybody and
Could you
everything.
imagine when this thing comes, if they or find the guy?
Oh my God. He would have press coverage 24/7 until he ran out of stories, which would probably be never.
I remember there was a story once, and maybe it was Newsweek, that they thought they went to some guy's house. They thought it was him, and it was just the whole thing. I just think the Times really thinks that they got this guy. They used AI to look at his writing, and then the story died for a reason. Maybe it's not him. Maybe it wasn't him. I don't know. Anyway, I appreciate CZ. I think he's going to do some good stuff. He's going to educate people on this business.
Was that to read his book? I got to read his book.
Read his book. You get through it fast. It's a quick read because he writes in very sort of he writes in a way that's very understandable and relatable.
Well,
So
coming from you, that's a compliment.
yeah.
Because you do that very
Excellently. I try. I also have good editors at the New York Post, I should point out. Clean up my crappy writing at times. Anyway, you got some stock stuff that you want to share.
We do. We got
minutes here.
We got 2 bearish calls. Abbott Labs is one, which is a global medical devices and diagnostics company, and then Truist Financial, which is a major U.S. regional bank. We have 2 bearish call there, and for their earnings calls to come out later this week and early next week. One of the things that we've been looking at is Avis and the short squeeze on Avis.
That's the car company, right?
The car company.
Hertz used to be Hertz and Avis, right?
That's right. And if you look at short interest is more or less hung in there, but what's happened is that the active long positions have built up from mid 2025 from 2.9 billion to about 11 billion.
Oh, wow.
And so you have people hanging in there short the stock. The stock's up huge. I mean, it's almost doubled or tripled. And what we're seeing here is that the positioning, you can see through our data that who's actually and what investors are actually teaming up
Right.
against the short side of the market. And it turns out it's active longs and retail.
Really?
Yeah. And retail is a very heavy player in this stock. And
retail is shorting this.
no, they're long.
They're longing. Okay, so they're long. Is it kind of like a meme thing going on here with Avis? I think Hertz was the initial meme. Wasn't Hertz a meme back in the day? Back in 2012?
Well, it went through bankruptcy and then Detroit.
Yeah,
So
became a meme stock.
they became a meme stock. So you have, the short interest is it's high, but it's about 8 million shares. But the price has gone off through the roof, and so we see this as a function of shorts saying the price will mean revert, and active longs and retail goosing the stock.
Interesting.
Because of the market dynamics that are there. So that's pretty interesting. The short interest is outpacing long positioning in the Russell 1000. Now, the way to look at the Russell 1000 is that it's like the S&P 500 plus another 500 stocks. So it's basically the institutional universe's playground.
So it's more than just tech and stuff in there.
It's everything. It's think about it as the S&P 500 plus the 500 larger stocks. And what we see is that that short positions are growing faster than long positions. And so if you go back, if you think about where we were about a year ago, at Liberation Day, right? And one of the more fascinating things is that if we asked you and said, what's the total return for energy versus technology over the last year? Probably with recency bias, you would say, oh, energy's got to be way up and tech's got to be way down. Just what you hear in the media. Actually, they're the same. It's the same return over the last year. So we thought that was an interesting nugget in the Russell 1000. And one of the things that keeps the Russell 1000 at its current level is that short interest is very low, active longs are low, but the passive, the indexers of the Russell 1000 are at $38 trillion. Oh, huge amount of money.
That's a lot of money.
Right. And so it shows you who's actually controlling the price. It's not the active money, it's the index money that's controlling the price. And that may explain why so much of the marketplace actually intra-market, you see these mass rotations and you see sectors go up and down violently. But there's such a pocket of money in the Russell 1000 that's passive as a huge buffer for market volatility. And then lastly, one of the more, we've been looking at shipping stocks. We love talking about shipping stocks. If you look at the Z-score on the largest 8 shippers, we've never seen this. There's at least 2.5, almost 3 times as much as their 1-year historical averages. And one of the things that's interesting is that the shorts are actually standing their ground in stocks like Maersk.
Interesting.
Which, and if you look at that, you say, well, why is that? And you take a look at the graph where we say, the Maersk lags global shipping rally. If you look at the Maersk price versus the index, Maersk is way off. And so the thinking is they can't charge the rates that they could before. So it's a interesting, it's the market saying, we think there's going to be some kind of resolution. And that the one that's actually extracting the biggest rents, we're going to short, and we're just going to go long everybody else because
and that resolution is what?
There'll be some kind of passage through the Strait of Hormuz.
Okay, so let's go to headlines because the headlines are confirming that. S&P closed above 7,000 today.
Yep.
Oil is down today. I mean, depending on which one do you look at? Brent. Where's Brent there? Brent, I think it's below 100, right? Yeah. That will tell you. And a lot of the market guys I talk to, I read Larry Fink's stuff. Blackstone had blowout earnings, right? Some of the stuff that kind of went unnoticed from Fink's comments to an analyst and what BlackRock actually said in some research. Brent is down to $94 a barrel right now. That's pretty good, given what's going on. We still have a blockade. Is that they think this thing is stabilized, that it's contained.
Yeah,
it's not. We're not going to go through something sort of horrific, and this is going to come to an end soon. That's what all these Dow, S&P 7,000.
Everybody's thinking that the blockade is putting so much pressure on Iran. They have nothing. They got nothing. They got no more cards.
By the way, if Trump comes out of this, we come out of this okay. What I would say is there's never been a greater divergence between the mainstream media, most of the headlines in the mainstream media. I'm part of the mainstream media, but you're not getting that from me. But if you read the Times, just the headlines in the Journal, and this is like, the war is wreaking havoc throughout the world. We're losing.
The Journal definitely changed their tone in the last week.
Not the editorial page, but the news page, right? So they may be saying they're just following the news, but the news pages of most of these papers are definitely predicting gloom and doom economically. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying they are.
What the Michigan survey was today?
No.
48. It's never been that low.
Okay, so
consumer sentiment has never been this low. It just goes back to 1973.
But consumer sentiment sometimes sort of feeds off these headlines. They're nonstop.
Well, that's why I mention it. Sentiment is sentiment, right?
But that doesn't mean that's what's happening. We're not losing the war. Gas is not $5.
It's something different. It's
gas is $5, $6 a barrel in California because you're paying a lot of taxes. Last week I was in South Carolina. It was $3.60. Right. I'm not saying it's great. I'm just telling you.
No, I understand. But the sentiment, the Michigan survey is down at 47 or 48. I think that was the number. So is it possible that the cumulative effect of inflation over the last 5 years, right? It's finally hitting the consumer in a way that is really, really, really painful. That number is so far off the chart. You can overlay that versus Vietnam, versus the oil shocks, versus crash, versus 9/11, versus the Iraq War. You can take all these different points of gloom and doom over the last 40 or so years, and this is the nadir.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps if you're sitting in the seat that wants to feed people news, you give them what they want, right? If they're feeling gloomy, you want more gloomy news.
Yeah, I think it's Trump derangement syndrome too, to a large extent. I just think that Joe Biden was one of the most incompetent presidents we've ever had. We didn't get this much. Trump says some crazy stuff. The Jesus.
Well, why pick a fight? Why pick a fight with the Pope? Why do it?
Well, as a practicing Catholic, I could tell you. I'm not practicing, but I'm a Christian, but I'm a Roman Catholic. The Pope should probably stay out of politics.
But he's in it.
Yeah, but
but there's no need to engage.
The Pope, we're a long way from John Paul, whose famous stance against communism, which was obviously an evil empire, as Reagan put the Russian menace, the Soviet Union, and communism, was legendary. We're at a point now where we have popes saying that we should have illegal immigration run amok.
But business isn't good, right?
I'm just saying that they do go there. They support illegal immigration, the Catholic Church, and I'm just
parishioners are down. Business isn't good.
So, all right. Well, then maybe you need to hone your message a little more, be a little more pro-American. But they've gone into the liberation theology part of Christianity, and I could see Trump's point with that. But my point is that Trump says some stuff that's seems unhinged. The Jesus meme was hysterical, by the way. But I get it. Probably shouldn't go there. But his policies are pretty conventional. Taking Iran out is not. It's not an absurd idea. These people are crazy. And by the way, why are they controlling the most vital area for oil distribution in the world? These Looney Tunes.
Well, to your point, words matter, right? And so a toll that's piracy is not a toll.
Yeah.
It's piracy.
Yeah, that's piracy.
And that's what it is.
So we wrote
So what else?
Sands of Iwo Jima to the shores of Tripoli.
Right? And that's Thomas Jefferson one of his first acts as president,
Right.
was to go to Tripoli. And that's why the Marines sing about it, right? Is because they were holding our ships up and we went over there and blasted them, and that was that.
Yeah.
Now, larger version, way more complicated, a lot of tangential relationships. But is there any doubt, given the capability, that they would use it in any malign way you can think?
Absolutely. And by the way, we should point out that on Risk and Return, I would say about a month ago, I think it was March 11th, we had Jack Devine on.
Yep.
Pretty sure it was March 11th. And Jack said, when I asked about the Straits of Hormuz, there's no way we're going to allow this to happen. And bingo, you see what's going on right now. We are now controlling the Straits of Hormuz.
That's it. Well, for 2 days in a row, but that's correct.
He said it was coming.
Well, the one thing, he may say a lot of different things.
Right.
But, he has mastered the 5% doubt. He has everybody guessing. And that's a great thing if you're a leader, particularly if you want to actually...
That's his negotiating style.
Be unpredictable.
So great show today, Bob. Good stuff on your end. We had a great guest.
Amazing guest.
Amazing guest. I'm going to leave it at that. Dow hit a record 7,000. One other thing, I kind of want your view on this. Mark Mobius died.
Yes.
Now, Mark Mobius,
gentleman.
And by the way, in my view, one of the, just the pioneer of emerging markets investing.
He was emerging markets.
Right. He was
time at Templeton.
At Franklin Templeton. So when I first got into the business, when I first got to the Wall Street Journal, I should say, my first beat was covering Wall Street, but I had a specialty covering mutual funds when they were exploding. It was like this huge business. And I had the opportunity to interview Mr. Mobius, and couldn't have been a more
unbelievably nice guy. He was very nice to me very early in my career. I knew nothing, and he actually was very nice.
No, he would he wasn't.
He'd actually take your time and
for a guy. He was all a wasn't he a PhD? And
totally. I don't know his academic background, but he certainly was one of the smartest investors in emerging markets. He was the name in emerging market investment for a long time.
By the way, PhDs in economics and political science, according to the journal from MIT. So yes. I mean, this guy was really smart.
Great guy.
Rest in peace. Lived a good life. 89.
Let's end it there.
Yes, guys, that's it for us on Risk and Return. I'm Charlie Gasparino with my partner Bob Sloan, signing off. See you next week.
Well.